You've designed the headings for your article, then you can actually go in and start writing the article. One more thing to note before I do move on though, is that if you want to put headings in headings, like for example, you might put, this is the entry for the first best animal cafe, right? Within this, I might want more headings. For example, I might put, let's say for example, opening hours. At the moment, these here are the same level. However, we don't want that to happen because this is basically saying, this is the article, this is chapter 1, this is chapter 2, this is chapter 3. But we don't want opening hours to be a chapter itself. We want it to be part of the above chapter, part of chapter 1. So what we can do is we can make this H3. And that shows that this here is a subheading of this. And then if I was just to put like another subheading in there, this one I would make H4, showing that opening hours is a subheading of this opening hours, which is a subheading of cafe name, which is a subheading of the article title. So it gets a bit complex, and normally you won't need to go past H3. Normally kind of 2 levels of indentation is enough. However, it is worth noting. So yeah, now you can start writing your article. You generally don't have to be too careful about the contents. Just the best way to make your contents show up or rank highly in Google these days is just to provide details. User intent these days is incredibly important because something like 60 or 70% of Google searches these days are made by voice. And when people a voice search, they don't generally search something like cafes, right? They don't say, hey Google, cafes. They say, hey Google, what's a good cafe near me? Or, hey Google, what cafes are open right now? Essentially, they ask questions. Voice searching is all about questions and user intent, whereas text searching is often about just phrases, right? Like if I was to look up a cafe in Korea, I would just look Korea cafe. But I would never voice search that. I wouldn't say, hey Google, Korea cafe. I would say, hey Google, what good cafes are in Korea? Or, hey Google, where's a Korean cafe near me? Something like that. And the same goes for Siri or Bixby or Cortana, any other voice assistant. So this is important because it lets you know what you should write about. So when you're writing about cafes, you want to think about, what do people want to know? If somebody's looking for the top 5 best Korean animal cafes 2021, what do they actually want to know? Obviously, they want to know the best animal cafes. But on top of this, what other information do they want to know? And that can often dictate how you should write your article. Of course, add what you want and write about what you want, but make sure to include important information. For example, in this case, I think people probably want to know about the opening hours of every cafe. They probably want to know the location of all of the cafes in the list. They probably want to know what animal is in each cafe, right? If it's a cat cafe, a dog cafe. And they probably want to see some images, and you can kind of guess what people want to see, what they want to find from an article. And that's key to SEO in 2021, is writing articles about things that people are actually searching. Answer their queries. And if somebody searches something, especially those 70% of voice searches, and Google decides that your article best answers that question, then your article will be the result that's either read back to them or shown to them. So, yeah, often these days, having headings and question form is very good. You could have a heading like under Cafe 1, maybe what other cat cafes are there? So somebody might be asking Google or searching Google about cat cafes, and you're already preemptively kind of guessing what questions they might be asking. They might read your article, read the cat cafe, but they decide they don't like this cat cafe. Or maybe the hours are too short, or there's an age limit so they can't take their children. So they're wondering, oh, what about other cat cafes? And then there you can write a little part about that. You're predicting or preemptively answering questions that you think people might be asking. And that's what makes your results more valuable than another result. Another thing is the ease of information, so make sure that information like opening hours are clear, easy to read, and that they're just overall easily accessible. So yeah, a lot of SEO now, it used to be about keyword stuffing, putting keywords in as many places as you could on the page, things like that. Now it's a lot smarter, and now you just want to be thinking about what people actually want to search and trying to answer that. So another great way to do that, and a way that I always recommend, is once you've finished the article, what you can do is add an FAQ at the bottom. So FAQ is frequently asked questions, and in Google, this shows up as this. So you can see this article here has an FAQ attached to it, because you can see the FAQ questions here. Now these here are actually directly attributed to this website. These questions here, what people also ask, are not related to any single website. So these here are different. However, you can see that some websites actually have their own FAQ. Now this is handy because it just increases the chance of your website being seen. So as you can see, this entry here is probably like half the page tall. This one here is probably 300 or 400 pixels. And then down here, these are only 200. And the bigger you're placing on Google and the higher, the better. So adding FAQs is almost always worth it because it's low effort. It answers user intent. When does the sun set in Seoul? It answers a specific question that a user might be searching. And it's also gives you a better spot, a bigger spot, I guess. So for example, so if I go back here, you can see that one of the FAQs here is, what is the best sunset in Seoul? And that's a question that a lot of people could ask, right? If they're searching about sunsets, they might simply ask, hey Google, what is the best sunset in Seoul? Or they may even search that via text like I just did. And you can see when I actually search that same article comes up and it has the top spot because it specifically has a title and a section answering this exact question. So Google knows exactly what this article is about, or at least that section of the article, and it can lead viewers to that. So that's why predicting what users are searching is so vital, and also why FAQs are so important. So to add an FAQ, you can just add a section like what is the best cat cafe? I can't spell today. And then you can add a short answer. The answer should probably only be 1 or 2 sentences, something that's easy for a person to read quickly. Then you can add a new FAQ. You can add as many as you want. However, I generally recommend 5 minimum because actually I think this article has more than 5 FAQs. It has 5, but only 2 of them show up. So Google still dictates how much room you get, and it dictates which 2 show up based on which 2 are the most popular. So these 2 here are what people are wanting to know about the most. So I recommend about 5 FAQs because then hopefully 2 or 3 of them will be picked, and if you're very lucky, all 5 of them will be.